Don't give it to her. She's just the mechanic lady. The laughter echoed through the armory, sharp and careless. No one expected Hannah Cole to touch the Barrett like she owned it. But when the rifle jammed, it was her hands that moved first. She snapped the case open, tools flashing under the lights, and then a silver medallion tumbled onto the steel table. 278 confirmed eliminations. A crosshair, a black star. The room froze. Who was this quiet woman? Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The fluorescent lights hummed in the basement armory of Fort Ridgefield. Rows of rifles lined the walls like steel ribs, their shadows stretching across the concrete floor. At the far workbench, Hannah Cole hunched over a battered rifle case that looked older than the corporal who carried it in. Corporal Daniel Brooks had dropped the case with a loud thud. Bolts jammed tight. Command wants it ready by 1500. His tone was brisk, but his eyes carried that impatience common among young soldiers who never noticed the quiet ones. Hannah didn't answer right away. Her gray eyes traced the scratches on the rifle case, fingers brushing the latches like she already knew what she'd find. She nodded once, her voice barely audible. "I'll have it done." Brooks gave a half smile and left, boots echoing up the stairwell. The armory settled into silence again, broken only by the faint clicking of tools and the low buzz of fluorescent tubes. Hannah exhaled, steadying herself as she opened the case. Inside lay a Barrett M107A1, 50 caliber, anti-material, heavy as sin. The weapon was designed to punch through steel, not paper targets, and it carried the kind of presence that demanded respect. Hannah lifted it onto her bench with both hands. The bolt was frozen halfway, jammed so hard it felt fused to the receiver. She rolled her shoulders once and began feel-stripping it with a speed that seemed instinctive. Her tools were laid out in a compact leather kit. Each piece had been collected over years, small brushes, custom pins, odd-sized wrenches. The kit was her constant, following her through stations and bases like a shadow. She flicked open the brass clasp. The lid snapped back, and something small and metallic slipped out. It hit the steel surface of her bench with a bright chime. Hannah froze. The object spun once, then stilled under the harsh lights. A polished medallion, silver edges worn smooth from years of touch. Her stomach tightened. On its face was an engraving, 278 confirmed eliminations. Beneath the numbers sat a crosshair, with a single black star, the insignia of Phantom Unit. Her hand shot out, covering it just as footsteps sounded on the stairwell. Brooks was coming back down. The echo of his boots thumped closer, careless and quick. Hannah slid the medallion back into the kit with practiced calm. Her fingers moved like she was concealing a weapon. By the time Brooks turned the corner, her hands were already on the rifle again. "How's it look?" he asked, leaning on the edge of her bench. "Carbon buildup. Bent extractor claw," she said flatly. "But it'll run." He nodded, not noticing her steady breathing, not hearing the hammering inside her chest. When he left again, Hannah's shoulders slumped. The medallion still seemed to burn inside the kit. 3 years she had kept it hidden. 3 years since Phantom Unit. To the rest of Fort Ridgefield, Hannah was invisible. Just another armory tech, keeping rifles oiled and bolts clean. Her personnel file read logistics support. No one questioned it. That invisibility suited her. Most soldiers forgot her name minutes after speaking to her. They called her mechanic lady, or the quiet one in the basement. It didn't bother her. Better they underestimate her. Better they never know what she once was. Yet the way she handled weapons was too smooth. Her hands didn't search for pins or hesitate on parts. She moved like someone who had stripped this rifle in darkness, in storm, under fire. She had, but that was supposed to stay buried. Only the metal remembered. Around her, the other technicians clattered, cursed, joked. They used manuals for every detail, squinting at diagrams. Hannah never did. She reassembled the Barrett's lower, snapped the pins back in place, and worked the bolt. It groaned, but began to move under her guidance. She could feel the rifle easing back to life, like an old warhorse recognizing its rider. The quiet didn't last. Boots clicked again, but slower, heavier, deliberate. Not Brooks this time. Staff Sergeant Megan Porter stepped into view. Her hair was pulled tight, uniform pressed sharp as glass. Her eyes swept the room like a scanner until they locked on Hannah's bench. Porter had 22 years in uniform. She'd seen rookies, lifers, and frauds come and go, and she had a knack for spotting what didn't fit. She walked over, folding her arms. "Barrett's giving you trouble." Her tone was casual, but her gaze wasn't. Hannah kept her focus on the rifle. "No trouble, Sergeant. Just carbon and sand." Her voice stayed even, but her pulse thudded hard. Porter picked up one of the clean components, rolling it between her fingers. Her inspection was quick, but thorough. "Funny," she said. "Most techs fumble through this model like it's alien tech." Hannah didn't reply. Her hands kept moving, clicking pieces together, wiping down metal with steady strokes. Silence filled the gap like smoke. Porter leaned in. "I've seen people take 10 minutes just to free the bolt on these. You've been at it less than 2. Her voice was sharper now, testing. Hannah forced her shoulders to relax. "I read the manuals," she said evenly, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they were weak. Porter smiled, but it wasn't friendly. She pulled out the chair beside Hannah's bench and sat down. Her eyes never left Hannah's hands. "You don't move like someone who read a manual?" Her tone dropped low, almost a whisper under the buzzing lights. "Where'd you really learn to break down a Barrett?" Hannah finally looked up. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, neither woman spoke. The question hung heavy, sharper than any blade in the room. Porter leaned closer over the bench. "Where'd you pick that up? Cole manuals don't teach hands like yours." Her tone was steady, but her eyes pressed like a vice. Hannah kept cleaning the barrel, eyes down. "Practice, Sergeant. Years of it." Her answer was flat, unconvincing even to her own ears. Porter didn't move. She tapped a fingernail against the steel, letting the sound echo. "Practice doesn't explain instinct. You stripped that rifle like it was part of your body." Hannah slid the bolt home and locked it. "Machines are honest. If you respect them, they respond." Her words were calm, but her shoulders betrayed the tension rising underneath. Porter studied her for a long moment. Then she stood, voice low. "I'll be watching." When Porter walked away, the air seemed heavier. Hannah packed up her tools with precise, almost mechanical movements. The medallion's weight inside the kit felt like a stone dragging her down. That night, her room was dim and silent. She sat at the small table, the leather kit in front of her. Her fingers unlatched the brass clasp like she'd done 1,000 times. The medallion gleamed under the lamp. 278 confirmed eliminations. The crosshair with the black star. Hannah stared at it, her jaw clenched. Her mind flashed back to a night years ago. Sand whipping across a rooftop in a country that didn't exist on maps. Her rifle balanced on a crumbling wall, her breath steady, her finger pressing against a trigger. A radio whispered in her ear. "Target acquired. 1 shot." The recoil hit her shoulder. The figure in the distance fell, and the radio went silent. Only the wind had answered her then. She snapped back to the present, eyes fixed on the metal. That life was supposed to be over. She'd buried it when she walked into this base 3 years ago. A knock startled her. She shoved the metal back into the kit and snapped it shut. When she opened the door, Brooks was standing there. "Evening. Cole, just checking if you're still working?" His eyes darted past her to the disassembled pistol on the table. "You always move that fast with weapons." Hannah forced a small smile. "Experience, old habits." Brooks tilted his head, suspicious but not bold enough to push. "Well, keep it up. Tomorrow's a big day. Brass are coming for that demo." He gave a quick nod and walked off, but his expression lingered in Hannah's mind. Curiosity could be dangerous. She closed the door and leaned against it. For the first time in years, she felt exposed, not from bullets or bombs, but from eyes that saw too much. The next morning, the base buzzed with tension. Rumors floated through the halls like smoke. The designated marksman for the Barrett demonstration had gone down with a fractured ankle. Officers scrambled, voices sharp, clipboards clutched tight. The visiting dignitaries weren't the type to accept failure. Everything had to run smooth, every weapon flawless, every shot perfect. Porter found Hannah in the armory, her expression set like stone. "We've got a problem. Our shooter's out." Her voice carried both frustration and opportunity. Hannah kept polishing a scope. Plenty of trained snipers on this base. Her tone was dismissive, but her pulse quickened. "Not one's available," Porter countered. "Rodriguez is on leave. Miller's deployed. The list gets thin fast." She paused, eyes narrowing. "And I saw you with that Barrett." Hannah stayed silent, hands tightening around the cloth. The scope gleamed under her touch, every line sharp. Her reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. "You could do it," Porter pressed. "Don't bother denying it. I've watched you. Your file doesn't match your hands." Her words cut close, each one pulling Hannah closer to a line she'd sworn never to cross again. Hannah set the scope down slowly. Her throat was dry. "I'm an armory tech. Nothing more." Porter leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You can lie to me. You can lie to the others. But tomorrow, if someone fumbles that rifle in front of congressmen and defense contractors, this whole unit pays the price." Her eyes burned with intensity. Hannah felt the walls closing in. The medallion was heavy in her pocket, like it wanted to speak for her. She looked away, searching for escape where there was none. That evening, she sat alone in her quarters again. The leather kit lay open. The medallion rested in her palm, edges biting into her skin. Her thoughts churned. Hiding had worked for 3 years, but now circumstance was dragging her back into the light. She remembered the faces of those who once stood beside her, operators who trusted her trigger, lives that depended on her cold precision. Her chest tightened. She had walked away because the weight of numbers had become unbearable. Each confirmed elimination, another stone in a pile she could no longer carry. And yet, the skills hadn't faded. She felt them every time her hands touched steel. They pulsed inside her like a heartbeat that wouldn't die. The door creaked open without a knock. Porter stepped in, silent, her eyes falling immediately to the kit. Hannah didn't close it this time. She placed the medallion flat on the table. The engraving caught the lamplight, numbers gleaming. Her fingers slid away, leaving it exposed. Porter stared at it, her breath catching for a second. Her eyes rose to meet Hannah's. Neither woman spoke. Finally, Hannah's voice broke the silence. Low, steady. "If you want this demonstration to succeed, I'll do it." The words hung in the air, sharp as a rifle crack. There was no taking them back. Her past was no longer a secret. It was a choice staring her in the face. Morning broke hot and dry over Fort Ridgefield. The desert air shimmered above the range, heat rising in ripples. Hannah Cole stood at the bench, the Barrett M107A1 laid out before her like an old companion. She moved slowly, deliberately, each screw checked, each pin aligned. The rifle had been stripped, cleaned, and rebuilt until it felt alive in her hands. Beside her, boxes of match-grade ammunition gleamed under the sun. She selected 3 rounds, chambered the first, and adjusted her scope toward a 300-yard target. The shot cracked, loud and sharp, dust leaping as steel rang in confirmation. 2 more rounds followed, each striking dead center. The recoil flowed through her shoulder in familiar rhythm. Satisfied, she exhaled, then adjusted the optic turrets with the care of a surgeon. She stretched her shoulders, rotated her wrists, small rituals, quiet movements that unlocked muscle memory buried but never lost. Porter stood nearby, arms crossed, saying nothing, only watching. Soon the convoys arrived. Black SUVs rolled across the gravel, engines humming low. Out stepped suits and uniforms, congressmen, defense contractors, and a handful of foreign officers invited to observe. Their shoes crunched on the dirt as aides carried folders and clipboards. Eyes scanned the range. Unimpressed at first, they had seen countless demonstrations before. Brooks offered them a briefing, voice eager, rehearsed. He described the Barrett's specifications: 50 caliber, armor-piercing, designed for anti-material roles. But the words bounced off the visitors like dry statistics. Then Hannah stepped forward. Her uniform was plain, her expression unreadable. Porter introduced her as the unit's designated marksman for the day. Several visitors exchanged doubtful glances. Some whispered, their expressions skeptical. Hannah caught every look, but her focus remained fixed on the rifle. She took position prone on the firing mat. The Barrett's bipod sank into the sand, legs steady. Through the scope, the first steel silhouette waited at 700 meters. The wind was calm, the light perfect. She drew in a breath, let it out slowly. The trigger broke clean. The rifle thundered. Half a second later, the steel target rang like a struck bell. A neat hole appeared dead center, smoke curling from the impact. The sound carried back to the stands, echoing across the desert. The dignitaries straightened in their seats. Polite curiosity shifted into genuine attention. Murmurs rippled among them. Hannah worked the bolt smoothly, chambering the next round. Her scope shifted to the second target at 1,100 meters. A faint crosswind whispered across the range, tugging at her hair. She adjusted one click right, one click up. Her breath slowed, her heartbeat steady. The shot cracked, louder this time in the dry air. The steel plate erupted into shards, pieces spinning skyward before clattering to the ground. The visitors leaned forward, eyes widening. Voices rose, no longer casual, now edged with awe. Hannah rolled her shoulder once, chambering again. The third target waited at 1,300 meters, a block of ballistic gelatin, translucent under the sun. It shimmered like living tissue. She focused, compensating for the heat mirage dancing at distance. The trigger pulled smooth, recoil shoving her back into the mat. The block exploded, a violent cavity ripping outward, smoke and dust rising like a signal flare. Gasps broke from the stands. Even the foreign officers muttered to each other, their tones shifting from polite to astonished. Cameras clicked rapidly, capturing the spectacle. Hannah kept her eyes down the scope, calm, steady. But inside, a flicker of something long buried stirred. This was the language her body still remembered. Then came the interruption. One of the congressmen stood, adjusting his tie. His voice cut across the field. Impressive, but controlled targets are easy. What about something unpredictable? He gestured toward a rusted pickup truck parked at the far edge of the range. It's not prepared, but let's see if your shooter can handle 1,600 meters. The range officers hesitated. That distance was beyond the demonstration plan. Eyes turned to Porter. Porter's jaw tightened, but she gave a small nod. Her gaze slid to Hannah. Your call, she murmured. Hannah shifted, her pulse suddenly louder in her ears. 1,600 meters meant calculations, wind calls, and risk. But she rolled the bolt, sliding a fresh round home. The truck shimmered in the heat mirage, its hood angled toward her. Through the scope, she read the small signs, the flagging grass, the shimmer of rising air. The wind had shifted again, subtle but real. She adjusted 3 clicks left, 2 clicks high. Her body stilled, breath anchored. The trigger broke. The rifle roared, the recoil slamming back, dust leaping around her elbows. The round streaked through air. Flight long enough for a pause of silence. Then the truck's engine block detonated. Metal screamed, hood flipping upward, flames curling from ruptured steel. Fluid sprayed, fire licking across the windshield. The dignitaries jumped to their feet in shock. The sound rolled back across the desert like thunder. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the fire crackled on the ruined truck. Then the whispers started. Sharp, urgent, tumbling over one another. Some reached for phones. Others scribbled notes, all staring at Hannah. Porter stepped closer, her voice a low rasp. "You're no mechanic. You're a legend." Her words were swallowed by the stunned silence around them. Hannah cleared the chamber, placed the rifle safe. She rose without looking at the crowd. Her face was unreadable, her eyes fixed on the horizon. But behind her, the questions surged. Where did you serve? Who trained you? Their voices followed like footsteps she couldn't escape. The demonstration was over, but the real trial had just begun. The range was still hot with smoke when the dignitaries descended on her. Questions flew like incoming rounds. Who trained you? Which unit? Where did you serve? Hannah kept her eyes lowered. She busied herself with clearing the Barrett, locking the bolt back, setting the safety. Her silence only made them push harder. Porter stepped in front, her stance firm. "She's one of ours. Specialized training, nothing more," she said quickly. Her words were vague, deliberately evasive, but the crowd wasn't convinced. A contractor in a gray suit leaned closer, eyes narrowed. He'd been watching her every adjustment, every movement behind the rifle. "I've seen that technique," he murmured. "The way she dials elevation, the half-breath timing. That isn't standard Army." His gaze sharpened. "That's phantom." The word cut through the air like a blade. Porter stiffened, but said nothing. Hannah's jaw clenched as the contractor's stare lingered. The officials were ushered back toward their vehicles, their aides buzzing with speculation. Some looked impressed, others unsettled. Every one of them knew they'd witnessed something rare, something not meant for public eyes. Porter waited until the last SUV pulled away. Only then did she turn to Hannah, her voice low. "Get your gear. Go back to quarters. Now." Hannah obeyed without a word. She walked alone through the base housing area, the sunset bleeding red across the desert horizon. Each step felt heavier, the metal in her pocket burning like an ember. Inside her room, the silence pressed in. She set the rifle case on the floor and the kit on the table. Her hands unlatched the brass clasps. The medallion lay there, glinting under the yellow lamp. 278 confirmed eliminations. The numbers were sharp, unforgiving, each one a memory carved into her bones. She stared at it for a long time, shoulders rigid. The crosshair with its single star seemed to glow. The phantom mark was impossible to deny. Her mind drifted back again, unbidden. The rooftops, the long nights alone with nothing but scope glass and a heartbeat. Each shot necessary, each one final. The door opened without knocking. Porter stepped inside, closing it firmly behind her. Her eyes went straight to the table, to the metal resting in plain view. She didn't sit. She didn't blink. Her voice was quiet, but sharp. "Tell me the truth. Cole. Were you phantom?" The words hung in the air, heavy as the rifle she once carried. Hannah lifted her eyes. For the first time, she didn't dodge. She gave a single, steady nod. Porter exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Her shoulders sagged under the weight of confirmation. "You know what that means?" Hannah said nothing. The silence stretched until Porter spoke again. "One contractor already suspects. If the word spreads, you won't stay buried in this armory. Not now. Not ever." Hannah picked up the metal, feeling its edges cut into her palm. Her voice was low, but steady. "I was never really buried. I've been waiting." Porter's brow furrowed, waiting for what Hannah's eyes hardened. Gray steel under the lamp. Waiting for the day I'd have to pick the rifle back up. Her tone carried no hesitation. It was less a confession than a sentence passed on herself. Porter studied her, silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Grim. "Then you'd better be ready, because that day's coming faster than you think." The two women stood in the quiet room, the desert wind rattling the window glass. Between them lay the metal, the symbol of a past that refused to stay hidden. Neither tried to soften the truth. Finally, Porter stepped back. I'll keep the others off you as long as I can. But this base isn't blind anymore. Her voice dropped even lower. And neither are the people outside. Hannah closed the kit, snapping the clasp shut. The sound echoed final, like a door slamming. Her decision had been made. She knelt, opened the heavy rifle case. The Barrett rested inside, clean and gleaming from her hands. She secured it in foam, locked the lid tight. The case clicked shut, but her eyes stayed fierce. Her jaw was set, her gaze forward, sharp with resolve. The kind of look that belonged to a sniper, not a mechanic. The quiet life was gone. The basement anonymity was over. Phantom shadow had found her again. She sat on the edge of the bed, metal in her pocket, rifle sealed away. The desert night deepened outside, stars pinpricking the black sky. But her eyes were wide open, unblinking. She whispered to no one, voice barely audible. I can't hide anymore. The words were not fear, they were readiness. Tomorrow would bring questions. It would bring scrutiny, perhaps orders, perhaps threats. But Hannah Cole was done pretending. The phantom sniper was still alive, and now the world knew it.